gents, and NBs. You've just entered the Last Save Lounge. So pull up a chair. You're in good harmony. Last Save Lounge is a weekly interview show where we dig into the stories, memories, and moments behind our favorite games of all time. I'm your host, Aaron TurboHoodie Amendola, and I am happy that you're here. Welcome, dear listener. I am joined today by a very special guest from the Gamers with Jobs conference call podcast coming up on 1,000 episodes, Amanda Knowlton. How you doing, Meebs?
Hello. Hi. It's so good to see you. And
I usually only see you on Sundays, but we're recording this on a Saturday. Is that throwing you off at all?
A little bit, because it's going to be great though, because it's going to make the weekend feel longer, because it's making today feel like Sunday. So having 2 Sundays in a row isn't too shabby. I'm pretty pleased.
Nice. It's getting dark here at 4:15, so everything feels terrible in Chicago, but one way to remedy all those terrible feelings is playing games. So Amanda, before we get into your favorite game of all time and all those warm and fuzzies, is there anything that you're playing now that's really sparking joy for you?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I've been playing the Switch a lot, like the original Switch, because I haven't picked up any new handheld. That's been pretty much my core handheld experience. I had packed up my other consoles because I was anticipating having to move soon, kind of put that off, but the Switch came back out because it's so easy. It's so easy. Like the PS5 is such a beast. Like I don't have anywhere to really put it. So it just, and you're not supposed to use it vertically, but horizontally it takes up so much real estate.
I have to take my vertical PS5 and put it horizontal then. Whoops.
Yeah. Well, the thermal paste is subject to gravity like everything else. So that's why you want to lay it flat. Preferably
Gravity is
on
the PS5's
side.
only weakness.
Yeah. I mean, vertically, it's stupid too. Honestly, like that thing is so easy to knock over. Anyway, they were just trying to ride on that Xbox monolith tower thing. Whatever. Anyway, that's not what we're here about, because I've been playing more consoles. I've been wanting to use a controller more because of thumb dexterity. It's something that's becoming a bit of a problem as I'm getting older. Like the arthritis is starting to become a thing. Using the joystick is not always great, but in small instances it's actually helpful, because it's this back and forth movement that actually needs to get exercised, and a joystick does that pretty well. My game choices, however, have been puzzles. So between puzzles and the game that I've been playing the most this week, which is Katamari Damacy. Oh, goodness. Oh my gosh. I already forgot the title. It's
Of the new one?
Yeah.
Once Upon a Katamari, right?
Once Upon a Katamari.
Yeah.
I think that that game is so joystick focused. I think the reason why I've been playing this is to offset the puzzling, which I tend to be D-pad focused for a few reasons. And I'll get into that, I think, later when I talk about Tetris. But the thing that's satisfying about Once Upon a Katamari is the throwback to the things that are familiar. Like you're still dealing with the king and sort of the royal family and the cosmos. You still have all of the cousins. The cousin collection is, I don't know where this comes from, because I'm not typically a collector, but I am when it comes to this game. So I go through and get as many crowns as I can on the first round. They're sort of like achievements. If you get all 3 crowns, it's like a gold, A rank or S rank or whatever. And then you can also collect all the cousins. And so by collecting crowns, you can unlock more levels. And so it just gives more opportunity for more cousins. I think they're all the same. I feel like there's maybe a few new ones that are like more techie or robot-like, but I am not as versed on the cousin lore. I just have my favorites. I like Marcy. I like Dupe. There's just, Marcy's the one that's like half. She's split in half color-wise. I think Dupe, I think that's her name. I'm not sure. DUP. I think she's the one in the black with the polka dots. There's also one that looks like a black sheep, like all fluffy and puffy. And so you can also get like costumes and unlock different aesthetics for them and design your own cousins for multiplayer. So I haven't gotten to the multiplayer part. I'm a little intimidated. I'm not going to lie. I feel like maybe you played a little bit, but
I played a little bit, and hearing you give the rundown of Katamari, of Once Upon a Katamari, I don't know that there's any other game out there that is so cousin centric, that is so cousin heavy in both the gameplay and the narrative. And
mhm.
we really just gotta thank Katamari for that. I haven't played online yet. Truthfully, I bought the disc. It is sitting in my PS5 vertically right now, and I just haven't gotten a chance to play it because my wife and I are too busy playing Dispatch, Absalom. We're also going through Fortnite. I am trying to get her to play Arc Raiders, and it's for the first time in a while we have an abundance of games we both want to play together. Like sometimes she'll play something on the TV and I'll play on the Portal or the Steam Deck or, you know, but there's actually a ton of games we want to play together right now. And Katamari is on the list, but it's kind of a known quantity. We know it's going to be fun. We know it's going to be wild. But right now, like Dispatch is releasing every week and we want to get in on that story. But, there's just a ton to play. As we are winding down, because, we're recording this in 2025, this episode's coming out in
Mhm.
2026. What's been your like game of the year so far? I know we haven't picked it for GWJ, but like, is there anything that's number one with the bullet for you right now?
Hmm.
I put you on the spot. I know.
You did. Well, I'm kind of torn because Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice Chronicles,
Hmm.
Ivalice, whatever you want to pronounce it. I always get that wrong.
No one's gonna come to your house. You can call it whatever you want.
But I'm conflicted because it's not an original game. It is a
Hmm.
game that was released like many, many years ago. So it is a faithful re-release, but I don't part of me like is it purist to just be like, I don't know if that's really a game that came out in
Sure.
2025. But like it was such a cornerstone to my gaming experience. It was one of the things that I probably had one specific PS1 save card that was just Final Fantasy Tactics. That was back when you still had to plug something into the console in order to make a save. God, the smell of that, do you remember? Anyway, so the just the sense of playing it draws up so much emotional connection to like a simpler time, but also like how much of that is the actual game quality? Like I've I would argue quite a bit of it, but I would, nostalgia is a huge part. Like I don't know how it would hit for somebody who's never played a tactics game before. They did a great job of sort of modernizing like the menu experience and the gameplay experience and the progression for sure. I think there are subtle tweaks to the story that I think are modernized in a good way, but I also felt it's a bit softened. Like I think there was a much harsher tone in regards to how power mishandles religion and public service and public life under a strict regime that is very present. But I think also it the newer version is a little bit softened. I think it's good that they like I haven't played the when you purchase the game in the base version, base copy, you get the Ivalice Chronicles or the original version. I'm still in Ivalice Chronicles. I haven't tried the original version. I want to see the remake that I'm working on through before I go play the original and see if it actually adheres to what my memory of it is, because I think some of the dialogue and some of the commentary is a lot more gut punchy, if that like it's they're not major. I think some of it was just translation, but I think it almost hit harder in its directness sometimes. And I want to be able to experience both and make that comparison. So, yeah, that game stood out huge for me, but there's a couple of other games I want to give a fair shake before I say that for sure. Yes, Blueprint is one of those things. But also, I want to look back at a few other properties like Clover Pit, and just look at the mechanics a little bit better. And I know there's other games that I played. I'm just kind of drawing a blank because I don't have my collection of games in front of me, but
Sure, sure.
those are the
But
ones that stand out for now.
if I think we had a conversation similar to this back in 2023 when Resident Evil 4's remake came out. And I remember thinking, this game is a ground up remake. They basically took Capcom's old classic, one of my favorite games of all time, put a nice coat of paint on it, jimmied up the mechanics a bit, and made it a lot more cinematic and, to me, a lot more modern. And that was, for a lot of intents and purposes, game of the year. No one could make me feel otherwise, but I think I gave it to Alan Wake 2 just because it was more of an original story. It
Yep.
was new, and I always feel that way with remakes where unless it's like a ground up sort of thing, like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, unless you're totally reinterpreting the source material in a new way, I always kind of hedge that bet. And I'll never give it
Right.
the number one spot, but I've never played Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm playing it right now on my Steam Deck, and I'm really enjoying it. So, like in this exception, I'm thinking, well, maybe I will get the number one spot. We'll see. I have a lot of game to play there, but I'm obviously really glad to hear that you are enjoying it. And if you want to hear more about your tastes and preferences and reviews of games, we also have another podcast called the Gamers with Jobs Conference Call, releases
Yeah.
every Wednesday, coming up on 1,000 episodes. Amanda, I know that you've hosted this show for hundreds of episodes now.
Yeah. So I want to say at least a 600. So I think I can't remember if that's when I started or that's when I took over. I feel like yeah, I'll have to do the math on that, but it's been a minute. It's been a while because I was participating for a while. Like I was in sort of the podcast rotation with the original crew for a few years before a lot of them went their separate ways, and it was interesting because it allowed them to explore gaming, and it'll be interesting to hear from folks, from hosts current and previous, about sort of their Gamers with Jobs experience when we come up on our 1,000th episode. Yeah, you can always find this over on the podcast. We also have Discord. It's just called Gamers with Jobs, and we do have a few socials out there floating around, I believe. Not too active, but they're out there, and that'll direct you to our website, which is still under construction, kind of upgrading, but the podcast is still continuing, and we just sort of talk off the cuff about games and whatever's sort of percolating in our brains about the game sphere in general. So, yeah.
In 1,000 episodes, I feel like Gamers with Jobs was probably on one of the first iPod Touches, or back when Apple had a complete monopoly on podcasts. I think it's an amazing achievement, and you've invited me to host a few times. I really appreciate it. So yeah, Gamers with Jobs conference call. By the time that you are listening to this, the 1,000th episode will be out. You can jump and join in whenever you please. It's a good time. But for right now, we are going to take a short break. I'm going to give you a special message, and then we're going to get back with Amanda's favorite game of all time. The Last Save Lounge is supported by Patreon at patreon.com/hoodieweather. By supporting Hoodie Weather, patrons get a bonus segment each week, a bundle of Hoodie Weather games, and ad-free episodes in your feeds. If times are tough, we think you are too. You can still support The Last Save Lounge by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app of choice. You can tell your friends, you can tell your rivals. We're not picky. We're a podcast, and we want listeners. So please tell your rivals. We'll beat them up for you. That's going to bring us back into the show. So, Amanda, favorite game of all time. You have a classic. Can you tell us what it is?
Yeah. So my pick was Tetris. Not a specific version, but just the sort of legacy, the experience of Tetris in general. It wasn't one of the first games I played, but I think it was the most impactful. It was one of the first games that we played sitting in the basement of my grandma's house, passing the controller with cousins. I just that sort
It's
of
a big
found
cousin
that kind of
episode. Yeah.
yeah. The concept of cousin is so interesting too. Like culturally, it has so many different meanings and so many different ways, but I think I just mean it in the way most folks are familiar with. But it was all about beating the high score. Like it was something about, being the best puzzler of the group that was just so satisfying. It was just seeing your three initials at the top of the list. But it's a game that is so ubiquitous. Like, I think everybody has, if you've touched a piece of technology and are familiar with sort of games in general, will at least recognize what it is. It's on most phones in some iteration or another on, multiple consoles, and many of us have purchased it many times over the decades it has existed. Um, yeah, it has stood the test of time, and there are other games that have tried to capture that lightning in a bottle and have failed. And there's a really, really, really good video by the gaming historian called The Story of Tetris, and they do a fantastic job of summarizing sort of the nightmare process of it, and just of just the early days of licensing, and but ended on a positive note, I think, and did a really good job of sort of honoring the process. It makes me emotional to hear the music or play the game, knowing that, like, this is a story of somebody who, like, just purely loved games. He I mean, please go watch the video. I'm not gonna retell the whole thing, but, like, it was something he did on company time with company equipment. Oops, like, I think that's a big reason
In
why there are laws
Soviet
about that now.
Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, of all places. So, but please go watch the video. It's like an hour long. It's a really easy listen, and I highly recommend that you do. One of the things that was so interesting to me, and I can't remember where I learned this. I think it was in an interview that I saw him in, the Alexey
Pajitnov?
Pajitnov. Yes,
Pajitnov. Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Alexey Pajitnov. You need to like say it a few times so your mouth is accustomed to it because you don't typically see the it followed by an NO sound.
Well, the so the thing about his story is that he, for so long, didn't get any real, like, credit for it other than in name only, just because of how how things happened. And so, he does now, by the way. Like, if there's anything that you see with, I think it's called, like, the Tetris Company or something associated with it, he gets royalties if it's from the Tetris Company. So don't feel weird about purchasing it. If you see that name associated with it, it means he's getting royalties. He should. Praise to that man. He gave it away to, like, psychology like places to study addiction. Like, he just
Well,
gave it to them.
and that's where we come up with the Tetris effect, right? You start seeing
Right.
Tetris in your normal environment. And I think that game came out 2018. Probably my favorite version of it. But
Mhm.
I think we'll be studying the effects of Tetris for years to
Tetris.
come because it's also a great educational tool. It teaches
Mhm.
organizational, logistical thinking. They already sell tools like that I could give to my daughter now and say, make a line. And she would take a yellow block, a red block, a blue block. It feels very universal. When that game was first developed, there were 12 shapes and then
Yes.
they edited it down to 7 to make it really simple. And it'll probably be one of the first games that my daughter plays when she can pick up a controller too.
Mhm. Well, and the amount of math involved is so fascinating. I don't know if you've seen or read anything about that, but the way that he redesigned it was with programming in mind, I guess. Like, so that you have to program how so, like, because it was reduced numbers, they were able I'm not a mathematician at all, by the way. I can barely count or any of that. So this is all magical to me. So it's just fascinating that a bunch of people who were just passionate about science and technology and kind of just came together at the right moments in order to make this happen. And he did other games too. He did Hexic. I don't know if you guys ever played that on I think I originally played it on the Xbox 360.
Yeah, that was like one of my first Xbox Live Arcade games, if I recall
Mhm,
correctly.
mhm. Hundreds of hours into that game. That was I didn't even realize it was him, you know? Like, it was one of those things where I think at that time I was living with I think, my future husband at that point. We both had Xbox 360s on different monitors in different parts of the house, and we would just sit in the same room, and I would just play Hexic, and we would talk. And it was such a like, now that I realize it, it was like it's that same mental place that Tetris took of puzzling in real time as conditions change. And I think there's something, especially for people who are neurodivergent, there's something very helpful in thinking through complex like abstract concepts while doing something that is very tactilely
Satisfying.
organized. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
not just satisfying, but making you're making physical connections. Physical, digital is still kind of the same thing, while making mental connections. And it's even though they probably didn't understand it at the time that they were giving it to these psychology students for experiments, that Tetris has had a positive impact on people's ability to reframe thinking. There's been research on that, and I don't know the studies. Maybe I can look it up and give you links later. But I remember hearing and reading about how people will use it much like EMDR, I guess. Like it has
Hmm.
that same sort of brain eye movement placement capabilities. Again, not a psychologist. I don't know. But as a fan, it's interesting to hear people put to sort of words and thought how it made me feel. Like it was the great neutralizer after dinner for my family with kids. Like we would all go downstairs and we would all kind of get in the zone. Like it just the thought of that, I'm like, wow, that was really something. Because otherwise we were just tearing around the house. No wonder they just sat us down there and turned that thing on.
Well, I want to ask you about that because
Yeah.
what you described earlier, passing around the controller playing Tetris, Tetris has been on a variety of platforms, but for me,
Hmm.
my sister had a Game Boy and she had Tetris. And
Yes.
so it was never sitting around the TV passing a controller. We were wearing down the buttons and the paint on this Game Boy. So your first exposure to Tetris was NES, it sounds like?
Yes, but we also had it on the Game Boy. Like my
Nice.
parents got us the handhelds, the original green screened, gray cased,
Yeah.
red buttoned Game Boy for many years afterwards. I don't know whose hands it made it out of, but the only cartridge that was in it that was still in it was Tetris, the Tetris that it came with. And it was my dad's go to, like, gaming toilet choice. So dropping blocks became synonymous with,
Dropping
like,
blocks while dropping blocks. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry. But yeah, so it's one of those things where, if you know the history of Tetris, like the Game Boy, it was the game that was packaged with it to sell it, and it sold it.
Hmm.
It's one of those games that even people who don't play a lot of games can get into, and it bred a lot of other Tetris likes. Your puzzle fighters and your Yoshi's Cookie and your Dr. Mario, and like there was games of I think it was like the late 80s, early 90s, and mid 90s even, that tried to still capture that experience. I mean, Bejeweled, like the match 3 situations, I think all
I mean,
grew from that.
Luminous was the big one
Yeah.
for me on PSP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah, yeah, I'll have to look that up. Wow. I haven't heard that name. Sorry.
No, well, there's a new version of Luminous out now that I'm so excited to play because it's by the people that made Tetris Effect. And if anyone was putting Luminous out, I'd be like, all right, cool, I'll try it eventually. But knowing that it's the Tetris Effect team, I'm like, oh, that game's a banger. And I don't play a lot of VR games, but one of the best VR experiences I've ever had was playing Tetris Effect in VR because just like in a dark room. All you see are blocks coming down. This incredible
Mhm.
soundtrack is just like booming bass in your ear. And it's one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. But a big part of that is the core game is Tetris. You can evolve the formula over and over. I remember Tetrisphere. There's something about that core game that is magical. And we're talking a little bit about the history of Tetris. When that Tetris movie came out on Apple TV, I was so excited, and it was fine. But they focused so much on Hank Rogers and the licensing.
Right.
Alexei was like over in Russia doing his thing, and there's a lot of intrigue and tension there. But I was like, keep on this. The licensing is interesting. Like, don't get me wrong. The way that they were licensing for handhelds and computers and all these different things, no one really had a great handle on the game holistically. But I really wanted to know more about Pajinov's like
Mhm.
dream of coming up with this game and what it's morphed into now. Like you said, thank goodness he's getting royalties.
Right, and you can tell he is so fond of it, and, like, Hank okay, so Hank, Henk
I
Rogers
know,
is a real
every time.
person,
Yeah.
and Hank Rogers is a character in the movie, and it took me the longest time to, like, make because I was like, "Why does that sound so weird?" But, like, part of the reason I remember hearing about the movie, and it was during the time where we were all already tired of video games being made as movies, so when I
Yeah.
heard it being announced, I was like, "Get out of here." And also, like, why are we focusing on this? Like, no shade to Hank Rogers. He seems like a genuinely, like, amazingly cool dude. Him and Pajitnov are like friends, like in
Yeah.
real life friends,
And
right?
it's really
So, like,
cute. Like, it's cute to see them
super cute.
come out of this experience as, like, bros.
Right, right. So, but like also he really stood up for him and he was very, because there were other people who were being super shady, like your stereotypical like sleazy sort of like sales type folks were involved in a lot of this. And like, I can see why they picked Hank because he's just like, he's got, good guy, white hat, like
Yeah.
versus, spy versus spy kind of situation. But he was like the good guy in the story. So it was easy to pick up him as the subject. And I get that. But like, I think Alexei is so much more interesting. But
Mhm.
maybe that's just because I'm a gaming nerd that likes to sit in a dark corner and play games. And like, that's the part that I identify with.
Well,
So
when he was distributing the game,
mhm,
at some point, it was owned by the state of Russia, and there is
right,
no way he was ever gonna get any sort of recognition for it. It was just gonna be a Russian-made game with his
right,
name, like, maybe buried somewhere down there. So I think what Hank did is really fantastic, really really
hmm,
fought for that recognition. But that
totally.
movie specifically, like 20 minutes in, I'm thinking, "What are we doing here?" Like, come
Right,
on, I
right,
wanna know more about the conditions, I wanna know about his family life, I wanna,
mhm,
remember Queen's Gambit, how we got to see her doing the chess moves on the ceiling? Like, I wanted to see him doing that, but with Tetris pieces?
right, right, because he did a lot of, like, experimenting, like, it was he was a board gamer, so he had lots of, like, physical versions, like, physical in-person versions of concepts, and I think that's so fascinating.
Mhm.
But just that translation, like, having the because nobody was doing this at the time. Like, that's the other part too. It's become so commonplace now to sort of just think of these ideas and put to paper and then put to keyboard, but, like, people weren't really doing that. This is stuff that they just decided to start doing in their personal time. And so not in their personal time, it was company time, but on company equipment. Like, even nowadays, you're not supposed to do that. Like, technically, everything I do at work, that's company of the workplace, right? Like, that's not mine. And, like, we're familiar with that as a concept now, and that's part of the reason is they made sure those rules were real solid because of stuff like, what happened with Tetris, like we mentioned before. So, I don't know, Tetris is just so fascinating to me on just on a like a puzzle level. It's you don't have to explain a single thing. You No words are needed. No explanation is needed. You can give it to anybody and they immediately kind of figure it out and sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. it sounds like this game is like a almost like a creature comfort for you. You know, like no matter where you go, it's going to be with you, and there's something really comforting about that.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. I have like 3 months to edit this. You're totally fine.
Okay, yeah, the construction they were supposed to finish yesterday apparently hasn't finished because 'cause they've started, like, moving trucks throughout, so I just wanted to wait for the truck to pass.
How kind of
Um,
them.
uh, so I think that there is a version you mentioned Tetris Effect, that is the only video game that has ever caused water to come out of my eyes. Like, I'm not saying I was crying because I literally wasn't crying. It made my eyes water so much and, like, stabbing, shooting pains happen while watching playing
Jeez.
that I physically could not play it. And I'm not sure what it was, but I remember hearing that it was originally designed for VR. And so I'm wondering if there was something done in the translation from 3D to 2D that just didn't quite work properly because
Mhm.
I remember lying in bed and I had it mounted to something so that I could just like the tears could just like run down the side of my face while I played so that I wouldn't have to like so it wouldn't like yes, it was such a weird fixation at the time. But like mm, it makes me sad because Tetris Effect, you can't find it anymore. I think it used to be on it was something that like if you had a subscription you could play it and then now you had to buy it. It was like $50 or something crazy like that. Same thing with Tetris 99 used to be I think I purchased it or it used to be free and then they made it
Mhm.
Nintendo subscription online only and that's like $30 a month or something or
Oh, it's
maybe it's
like
thirty
it's
bucks a
30 a
year.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's not that crazy, but still it's just like do I really want to pay $5 a month to trounce some poor guy in, like Texas or Korea or like whatever at 3 in the morning? Like, I don't like maybe if it like there was just something so frustrating about paying for something and then being told if you want to actually participate, you have to subscribe to an online service. Like that just felt
Totally.
really gross. And I know that was like that for like didn't some of that what's that squid Splatoon? Like wasn't there issues with
Splatoon.
that with Splatoon as well? Like just the
I
online
am
service
much
with
too
that?
old to play Splatoon,
Okay.
especially now. I cannot get into it. I've tried, and I that was like one of the first signs I knew that I was old is I tried to play Splatoon, and there's
Mhm.
some 7-year-old in my ear saying like, "You're washed, Unk," and I was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna go jump in a lake." But as far as
Well, it
Tetris is concerned, I remember specifically I was at a cafe in Rome with my wife and I got a notification from Limited Run Games saying that they were doing a small printing of Tetris Effect Connected. And she was like trying to show me something in Rome. And I was like, hold on. We need a physical copy of Tetris because if it ever does get delisted or go away, like this is a relic that I want to show my family. I want to hand this down. So I'm a little bit more inclined to physical copy buy something just to immortalize it, but there is a piece of me that feels very comfortable knowing that I'll always have it for PlayStation at least, but that's just me.
I am literally searching right now if I can just buy Tetris Effect just because all of this happened before I got my laser surgery. What if the laser surgery fixed it so then now I can play Tetris Effect without any issues?
I think LASIK was designed just so people could play Tetris more effectively, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Ugh, $70 to play Tetris. Like, sorry,
$70.
Nintendo. Nintendo, why are you like this? Might be like could find it on Amazon for PS5 for
It's gonna be on sale soon. Black
60.
Friday's coming up.
I am not gonna buy anything on Black Friday.
I mean, good.
For no reason in particular at all. So, yeah, but I've also I might wait for a sale some other time. Some other time.
So Tetris is one of those games where I feel like everybody has a memory, like a core memory of it. And for
Mhm.
me, I remember my second date with my wife Liz. We went to this place in Chicago called Logan Arcade, and it was really an excuse to drink beer with a gorgeous woman and play video games. We played X-Men, we played Simpson, played pinball, and at one point she was like, "Oh, I'm really good at Tetris." And I'm like, "All right, let's see. Like, I think I'm pretty decent at Tetris." And she just like walloped me, just like Tetris after Tetris, like 4-piece long block after 4-piece long block, just like doom, doom, doom. And I've never been like, there's a certain amount of respect for not just seeing somebody beat you at something that you felt confident in, but to like absolutely clobber you. And now we're married. But I've wanted to ask you that memory of you passing around the controller with your family, playing it on the NES. Are there any other senses that you associate with that memory? Like, is there anything else that you remember about that just spurs to mind for you?
Well, there's something to the old school game controllers that the Switch has tried to recreate with the Joy-Con. I don't know if it's fully successful, but there's still that essence of like the button clicks. Like there's a
Mhm.
very satisfying clicky experience with Tetris that joysticks are just not good in that environment. I'm sure there are people out there who can play with it just fine, but I find it to be inaccurate. And there's something like I don't know, you play fighting games with
Oh, yeah.
things like fight sticks. So
And
maybe I'm
and the
speaking to the
joystick
wrong
is
crowd.
inferior, but
Okay.
I can't play Tetris unless I have a D-pad because when I rotate, I need
Mhm.
that click. I need to know that I did it correctly. And if I use a joystick, I always overdo it, or I end up doing that weird move where
Mhm.
I put it into a space I didn't mean to put it into, and then I get all frustrated. But yeah, I need a D-pad when I play Tetris.
Right. And especially when you get to some of the higher speeds where it's no longer falling, it's just kind of you can kind of see it come up and then it's just appearing at the bottom and you're rotating it so that you can figure out where to put it. Knowing how many rotations you need to hit to get to the right side when you have to time it, when you're like, okay, I've got like 3 rotations before I can play this, you're starting to think in rotations down the line. Because some Tetris games, okay, I'm gonna, I'm gonna back up. Some Tetris games will actually show you the list of pieces coming up, which is just like, that's almost like bumper cars. It's like easy mode. And I appreciate that because then I can start thinking about rotations like, okay, I'm building for these types of shapes over here on this side. I'm building column spaces over here. And so I think about which pieces I'm going to rotate in which placement ahead of the list. Some of the older school versions, you don't even get a hold spot. You get like a window that tells you what's coming next, and it's just like, God help you and good luck. And so like, I kind of prefer the other one for when I'm playing on like my Switch or when I'm not playing super serious or like there's a Puyo Puyo Tetris version that's really forgiving. I feel like it kind of goes easy on you. Like the speed up, the ramp up is really slow. Like it's chill because you're playing a small screaming child. I don't know, Puyo Puyo is weird. Like weirdly like super energetic and excited about puzzles and it's the atmosphere of Puyo Puyo, I think. So it's chill. It's an easy, good time. And then if you're getting into some of the more, I think simpler basic versions, so like certain mobile versions and things like that, you're playing with like swipes or flicks, which is completely different motion, or like even tapping like a screen controller, which it'll serve in a pinch. But like the best Tetris games on mobile were on the Nokia, they were on the flip phone, they were on the Razor. Not to be old and, old about it, but just like there's something about the tactile experience of hitting buttons that makes the placement feel really good. And it's also why Hexic was so successful with that too. In addition to like the actual button clicks, there was this very satisfying clicking sound when the hexagons rotated into the right placement. And then there was like a sort of like a subliminal chime when they touched. So you had this sense of like glass. If you've ever seen like glass chandeliers and like there's a little bit of a breeze or something, they all start like tinkling. It had that kind of same sort of like glass shimmering, clinking kind of sensation, so that you had the sense of like pieces moving. And I thought that was always so cool. Like there was just this auditory satisfaction of moving pieces. And I think that it's just drawing on that sense of like wanting to play with actual blocks, like actual pieces. It's why certain board games just have a really good like tactile feel that makes them feel so satisfying. Dice games do this.
It reminds me,
Um,
my daughter's really into magnet tiles right now, which are basically Legos with magnets, and clicking things together feels so nice. We love to build towers, and you can get like the snap going on the corner. And then when you knock it down, it feels like you've really earned something cool. I love that because I'm also another one that loves that tactile feel. I need that in so many games nowadays. There's something primal, especially like you said with fighting games, being able to do down, down, forward, forward. Like I need a gate on my fight stick that lets me feel all those directions. I don't want a square gate. I want a diamond gate always. I know, and that's a whole nother episode. Meebs, absolutely love that. Love talking about Tetris. It's just such a storied history behind it. And I feel like there's a long road ahead. So thank you so much for bringing us that one. Before we get going, where can we find and support you online?
Oh my gosh, like I'm typically not online. I've kind of forgone most social media at this point.
You're doing it
However,
right.
yeah, who knows? I will see. But yeah, like we do have our Gamers with Jobs podcast, which you can pretty much find everywhere. We also have a Patreon at GWJ. And then, gamerswithjobs.com, I think, is the most direct place to find us. The podcast is there, but so are our forums. If you need assistance with that, you can always reach out. But yeah, we even have email. Like if you want to email us about games, or if you have comments, questions, or stories you want to share, we'd like to share them with you too. So you can always do those at call@gamerswithjobs.com. I get those emails. That's me. I mean, it's the email that we use for everything, but it's also my inbox. So I want to hear people's Tetris stories too. Your Tetris memories, your highest score. I have no idea what my highest level is. It varies from game to game. Sometimes sometimes you hit an infinite level and others just throwing rockets at you. So yeah.
I would love to hear everyone's first experience with Tetris. I feel like our first experiences are very near and dear. And gosh, there's people half our age that are probably playing Tetris for the first time. I want to know what that's like. I want to know what it's like growing up in an age where Tetris is everywhere. Amanda Knowlton, Gamers with Jobs conference call. Check it out. Gamerswithjobs.com releases every Wednesday, over 1,000 episodes. So you can go through that whole backlog and catch up by the time this episode releases. That's going to do it for this episode of The Last Save Lounge. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. The Last Save Lounge is produced by me with Hoodie Weather, creating comfy games and podcasts broken in like your favorite hoodie. You can support Hoodie Weather by heading to patreon.com/hoodieweather and becoming a patron for just $1. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, and we'll see you later.